Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Good News Day, and I have tons of good news coming from me. Raj has a ton of good news coming from him, plus a glorious celebration of life, and we are going to look at all of that today. It is Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where we look up the news 10 to 15 minutes before we start without any caffeine in our bodies. So, time to read out those headlines and see what we're talking about. Today on Before Coffee, UK's largest population increase since 1971, and the Dutch are walking much more since the coronavirus.
And good news, actually great news, if we have the good economic news about Bidenomics.
Out of the UK, customers are being given back money from water companies due to all sorts of reasons that the water companies have failed. And more water news, salmon are swimming freely in the Klamath River for the first time in a century after dams are removed.
More good news on Good News Day. Hero passenger lands plane after pilot suffers cardiac arrest. And we remember Good Times actor John Amos.
Culture good news, musical journey. Lessons begin after piano finally arrives in Ethiopia.
And it's National Fluffernutter Day. And good news, if you can survive eating that, you can survive just about anything. October 8th, 2024 on Before Coffee.
Marshmallow cream and peanut butter. And people wonder why there's diabetes in the world. I think that's one of the reasons.
Yeah. Type 2 diabetes. There you are.
Yeah, right there, walking in a
What's
can.
Hypo. Right.
It's also,
hypoglycemia.
or I guess yesterday was also World Cotton Day. So the UN, official United Nations International Observance of Cotton, where you can celebrate and highlight the role of cotton in creating jobs, maintaining economic stability in cotton-producing countries, and particularly in least developed countries. So go sell up some cotton
Celebrate by wearing a shirt.
Touch it, I guess, because it touches you. Cotton touches us every day. That's what they say in this post. And by buying,
put it in your ears too.
By buying free trade cotton, you're supporting developing countries. And don't buy from clothes mills because you're not supporting anybody. You're just supporting sweat factories. So that's my news on World Cotton Day, which was technically yesterday, but yesterday had 2 days. Greedy bastards. Okay. For my first story, we're going to talk about population increases. And I was very excited for this story, as you may have seen earlier, because it's all about immigration. That's right. This is on The Independent by Ian Jones. The UK has seen its largest annual population increase. Oh, my music isn't playing. Just realized. I was like, why is it so quiet? So quiet right now. For some reason. Yeah. There we go. Okay. The UK has seen its largest annual population increase since the early 1970s. New figures suggest net international migration was the main contributor to the jump, while deaths outnumbered births for the first time outside the COVID-19 pandemic in nearly 5 decades. Oh, that's not great news. So they had an increase in population, but their deaths outnumbered their births. So they needed to import more people because they're having more deaths than births. The population is estimated to have risen by 1%, which doesn't seem like a lot. But 1% of 9 million is a lot of people still. What, 9,000? That's not right. I didn't do my math right. I'm terrible. In the year to June 2023, according to the Office for National Statistics, ONS. This is the largest annual percentage increase since comparable data began in 1971. So they could have had a greater increase at another time, but they only started actually collecting data 71. I'm sure the baby boom, there's a huge population increase. And the following rise of 0.9 in the year to mid-2022. Some 68 million 265,200 people were likely to have been residents in the UK in the middle of last year, up to 662,400 from the 67,602,800 12 months earlier. So they've had they've had more than 500,000 increase of population in the UK. This is also the biggest annual numerical increase since 1971. Net international migration, the difference between the number of people arriving in the UK and leaving, is currently estimated at 677,300 for the year to mid-2023. So yet again, 500,000 people are staying in the UK, right? Net migration. They're staying there and they've been there since they went there. And it was the main contributor for population increase for all 4 countries of the UK, the ONS said. There were an estimated 16,300 more deaths than births across the UK in the year to mid-2023. With the exception of the COVID-19 pandemic year of 2020, this is the first time since the mid-70s there has been a negative natural change in population with more deaths taking place than births. And this is why there's people migrating. I mean, if you even look at the population of Scotland, which is actually quite low, there's not a lot of people, like 8 million people living in Scotland or something.
Right.
So, and there's plenty of land up there. So, I don't see why you can't just move people there.
It's very uneven, but it's...
Yeah.
A lot of uneven land up in Scotland.
I would love to move to Scotland if it was part of the EU, but it isn't, so I'll have to settle for the Netherlands, which I'm not even settling. I love the Netherlands. So I probably like the Netherlands more than Scotland because I can't ride my bike in Scotland. Well, I could, but I might get hit by a car. Natural change.
Right. There's no...
yeah.
Just go off-road riding, man.
Yeah, totally. Natural change was last negative in 1976. Though this is based on year-end data rather than a mid-year data used in the calculation of population estimates, the ONS added. The UK population estimate for mid-2023 of nearly 68.3 million is up nearly 2 million on the figure 5 years earlier in the mid-2018, which was just under 66.3 million. It's also more than 4 million higher than the figure of 64.1 million a decade earlier in mid-2013. All estimates are likely to be revised within the next year as new data becomes available and improvements to estimates of international migration continue to be made, the ONS added. According to estimates published on Tuesday, which is today, October 8th, England's total population in mid-2023 was 57.7 million, so they've increased to 64, I think. In Wales, there were 3.2 million people, while Scotland, this is what I'm saying. Scotland doesn't even have 8 million. I was completely wrong. Scotland only has 5.5 million people. England has 57.7. Scotland is maybe not half the size of England, but it's at least like a third the size of England or 2/3 the size of England, and they have way less people living there. And I get it, the Highlands aren't exactly livable. Oh, maybe we should do something about that. Let's just manufacture the Scottish Highlands so people can live there. And Northern Ireland had 1.9 million. This reminds me of an argument I had with somebody in chat once, which they said that I was saying that the population all around is lowering in, like the natural population of Europe in general is getting lower because there's more deaths than births. That's just how math works. And they were like, no, it's not. Everyone's getting more people. And I'm like, yeah, because of immigration. You know, you're moving all those people to a different place. But that's not, for a lot of science, that's not considered a natural increase of population in your country. That's considered external factors like, migration. So the truth is that birth rates have gone down. There are less babies being born than people dying. And that's not the same for everywhere else. So everywhere else where they actually have a lot of people being born, or they constantly get put into wars by external factors, they have to go somewhere. So why not let them come to you? They want to be there. Not like, for the most part. More good news out of the Netherlands. The Dutch are walking more than they did before the coronavirus pandemic, with a distance traveled by foot every day up by some 33%. That's a huge increase, according to figures from Mobility Institute KIM. By 2023, the Dutch were walking an average of 1.1 kilometers a day, up a third on 2019, the KIM said. And 35% of the time the Dutch leave home is to go for a walk, compared to the 26% in 2018. The difference is particularly strong in urban areas, where people are more likely to walk for longer, the agency said. In the countryside, shops and other facilities are often further away, prompting people to go by car or use a bike. People over their 70s are most likely to go about their business on foot, as are children under the age of 12. Youngsters aged 12 to 17 are less likely to walk. Yeah, they're all riding those fat bikes, so they're not even pedaling their bikes. Researcher Matthias de Haas says the coronavirus pandemic is responsible for the increase in walking. During lockdowns, people were more or less confined to their homes, he told the AD. But in order to have something to do, they would go for a walk. 2 years on, walking would now appear to have become a habit, he said. Brain expert Eric Schurter told the AD that walking 20 minutes a day is good for the brain, heart, and arteries. It also helps against stress and depression and stimulates creativity. Getting some good vitamin D. Even if it's overcast, you still get some vitamin D. Nevertheless, despite the increase in walking, figures from Public Health Institute RIVM show the Dutch are cycling less and only 44% of the population take enough exercise. The bottom line is, he said, we are taking more exercise on balance. So go out there and start walking, people. This was from Dutch News. It wasn't written by anybody, but it was from the Dutch News. I forgot to say who wrote the article. So there's my good news about health and population increase and walking. Onto your story.
All right. Now for some good economic news from the United States. This is from the New York Times. Yeah, right. I clicked on New York Times only because the article is written by Paul Krugman, Nobel Prize winning economist Paul Krugman. And here's the story. It's hard to overstate just how good recent economic numbers have been. On Friday, we learned that job growth is still solid while unemployment remains historically low. I think it's safe to say that Defendant J. Trump's 2020 prediction that a Joe Biden presidency would mean a depression, a claim he is now repeating by predicting a Great Depression if Kamala Harris wins, didn't come true. A week earlier, we learned that inflation has continued to decline and is now more or less at the Federal Reserve's target of 2%. It's actually 1.7, the revised August number said. The success has defied the view held by many economists just a couple of years ago that disinflation would require years of high unemployment. So does this good news vindicate Bidenomics? I would say yes, but not quite the way you might imagine. Before I get there, a word with the inevitable attempts by Trump and those around him to deny the reality of the good news. Some, like Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, are simply claiming that the numbers are fake.
Oh, no.
That's it. They're fake. They're great when Trump's in office and they're good numbers, but they're fake now. These people are ridiculous. I swear to God, how do you run for office by claiming shit's fake? An entire party that just tries to deny reality. Aside from slandering some of our hardworking staff members of federal statistics agencies, such assertions ignore the fact that independent private estimates also show strong job growth and low inflation. The main response from MAGA world, however, seems to involve insisting, as Trump did in a recent interview on the Fox Business Channel, that the illegal migrants coming into the country are getting the jobs. Oh yeah, right.
The jobs you don't want, by the way.
If somebody that barely speaks English can take your job, you weren't really that employable to begin with. Think about it that way. Anyway, claims that this gets some surface plausibility from the fact that employment among native-born Americans has in fact flat or declining in recent years. But this isn't happening because the Americans born here can't find jobs. The native-born unemployment rate is only 3.8%. It's happening because baby boomers are getting older and more of them are reaching retirement age, leaving the labor force, involuntarily in my case. You get to be 61 and nobody wants to hire you. My job did me a great service by laying me off when I'm 61. They couldn't wait till I'm 62 where I could just go collect Social Security. They're like, oh yeah, be unemployed and be poor. Anyway, that's my problem. This, by the way, is something many economists, myself included, have been writing about for a long time. Yes, no shit. The labor force, a lot of heavily trained people are just leaving or dying because of COVID. And they're not being replaced by people who can do the job necessarily. If you correct for an aging population by looking only at adults in their prime working years, the employment rate among U.S.-born adults is higher now than at any point during the Trump administration. In short, the good economic news is real, whether Trump and his hangers-on may say. But does the Biden-Harris administration deserve credit? The fiscal stimulus provided by the American Rescue Plan enacted earlier in 2021 surely helped the U.S. economy recover quickly from the pandemic recession, but it's difficult to argue that it's still driving job growth in the fall of 2024. As for falling inflation, while the Biden administration did sign something called the Inflation Reduction Act into law in 22, it's basically had nothing to do with inflation. It's mainly a climate bill. Administration economists themselves attribute the decline in inflation since 2022 primarily to these unsnarling of supply chains that have been disrupted by the pandemic. Government policy may have helped this unsnarling a bit, but mainly it was a matter of our economy showing once again its remarkable ability to adapt to shocks. But if President Biden's policies weren't the main cause of low unemployment and inflation, why do I say they were vindicated? Because of our success at getting to the good place where we right now shows that progressive economic policies are in fact feasible. If you read these misguided warnings from a few years ago that our economy was doomed to experience persistent inflation and recession, some represented sincere concerns that the inflation surge of 21-22, which was, by the way, global, occurring in many countries, they were fearing that it would become entrenched. But many of them had an unmistakable tone of satisfaction, implicitly or explicitly saying, see, this is what happens when you spend money on things liberals want. Indeed, the Biden administration pushed through major assistance to families with children, big subsidies for clean energy, large investments in technology, and more. Many stagflation doomers saw what they imagined to be a dismal economic outlook as, in effect, punishment for this ambitious agenda. In other words, many of those dire predictions about the economy should be seen as ideological or just cynical assertions that if you try to protect the environment and help families in important industries, as opposed to, say, cutting taxes to the rich, you'll wreck the economy. Some, like Elon Musk, otherwise known as Ketamine Karen, are basically still saying that because Elon Musk is an idiot who inherited his money and makes a lot of bad decisions, got lucky on a few of them, but he's no genius. Sorry,
this is an article for somebody with the Nobel Prize in economics, right? So he knows what he's talking about. He's not talking out at his ass like the rest of these.
Oh, it's just Paul Krugman, quite famous.
Trust fund babies.
Except the punishment never came. America has instead experienced robust growth combined with falling inflation. Will those who insisted on progressive policies are economically disastrous reconsider their views given how well we've done recently? Don't hold your breath. For the rest of us, however, the good economic news confirms that you can do well while doing good. The American can prosper in the present while preparing for the future by aiding children, building infrastructure, and promoting the energy transition and more. And that, at a fundamental level, is what Bidenomics was about. The assertion, now vindicated, that progressive policies can go hand in hand with prosperity. There's your story on the good economic news and how managing to increase productivity and build infrastructure is just going to help, actually. I don't know why anybody think it would hurt, but hey, there's your story.
I mean, how do you feel in the economics yourself?
How do I feel about what?
Well, I mean, as somebody who's, as you said earlier, living poor, so to say, though you're the type of person who would feel the economic turmoil, if there is one, the most.
Nah, I'm not. I'm actually buffered from it.
Oh, really? Okay, still.
I'm actually buffered from it. Yeah, I'm already unemployed. How can I get more unemployed? I can't. I'm buffered from it.
Okay.
No, I'm dirt poor. I'm on a mortgage, and I have to borrow money to pay my mortgage until my Social Security kicks in, and then I'll be poor the rest of my life. That's my situation. I've accepted it. That's the way it's going to be, unless I win the lottery or somebody starts watching the show or something. I don't know. That's where I am. That's where I'm going to stay.
I'm just saying, like, I don't know.
Doesn't
I don't know what the economy feels like right now either, because I'm in a different place completely. I mean, yeah, I'm in the EU, which is totally different. We don't have Bidenomics.
Inflation is a lot harder on younger people who haven't got like any savings, or they don't have a home that they own or shit like that.
I see.
But I don't really go up and down with the economy. I never done that. It's a macro problem.
Exactly.
It's way too many components involved, and the entire inflation thing was caused by supply chain problems back in the end of the pandemic, and that's what it was caused by. And since those have been corrected, inflation has been coming down. We've also had good economic policy in the government, but I don't know. I just read the article.
I just thought maybe you had your own opinions. Okay.
I have a lot to say.
Yeah. Next stories then. Let's talk about water. Now, a few months back, I was talking a lot about water companies in the UK who were just giving people sewage water and taking the cash. And then, what was it called? Oxfam has decided, you know what? These people need to give money back to their customers because they didn't give a good service. And one of these places we're looking at is actually Wales. So water companies will have to return 157.6 million pounds to customers in Wales. This is by Kathy Owen on Wales Online. Customers could see lower bills next year after water companies were ordered to return nearly 158 million for missing key targets on issues like pollution. Welsh Water is one of the 3 companies who has been categorized by watchdog Ofwat, that's what it was called, Ofwat, as lagging behind. So Ofwat has counted a lot of companies. Industry regulator Ofwat said on today, October 8th, that water companies will have to pay a estimated 157.6 million pound penalty after missing key targets on reducing pollution, leaks, supply interruptions, while customer satisfaction continues to fall. Chief Executive David Black warned companies that money alone would not solve the issue and there needed to be a change in culture. I agree, because fines don't do much for, like, a privatized water company is probably making that much money. They would like to make more money, but now they can't. Their profits are going to get kicked in because of the fines. Ofwat assesses the performance of the 17 largest water and wastewater companies in England and Wales each year against key targets for issues such as sewer flooding, supply interruptions, and water leaks. For the second year in a row, no company achieved the top rating, although some companies did show an improvement from last year. 4 companies moved up from lagging behind to average: Southeast Water, Southwest Water, Bristol region, Thames Water, Yorkshire Water, but the report said the performance improvements are inconsistent across the sector. It also says that drinking water quality continues to be excellent in England and Wales, with public supplies consistently meeting their stringent standards. Welsh Water, Anglian Water, Southern Water have been categorized as lagging behind and are required to continue to provide service commitment plans alongside 4 companies that moved into average to ensure improvements are sustained. Thames Water moved up a category from lagging behind to average, which we've talked about them a lot because they were getting in a lot of trouble earlier in the year for overflowing and sewage in the water and, well, not being able to swim in the Thames. Like, don't go there. No, the boat competition had to be canceled or delayed because they're like, don't touch the water. as it met 6 of its performance commitments and improved on leakage and water supply interruptions, because that's what they're getting all the flack for. Mr. Black said, "This year's performance report is stark evidence that money alone will not bring sustained improvements that customers rightly expect. It is clear that companies need to change, and it has to start with addressing issues of culture and leadership. Too often we hear the weather, third parties or external factors are blamed for shortcomings. Companies must implement actions now to improve performance, be more dynamic, agile, and on the front foot of issues, and not wait until the government or regulators tell them to act. As we look towards the next price control, the challenge for water companies is to match the investment with the changes in company culture and performance that are essential to deliver lasting change. However, we are beginning to see some companies are beginning to change their culture and adopt a more innovative and forward-thinking approach to tackling pollution. Severn Trent is taking action to cut sewage overflows with 617 improvements at 467 sites, delivered by over 400 specialist employees, with plans in place for further investment. We need to see more firms showing the same sense of urgency and action." For the worst performing companies, failure to meet the targets means they will now have to collectively return £157.6 million to customers on their bills for 2025 and 2026. A Welsh Water spokesperson said, "We are working hard to deliver the improvements that we know we need to make. Our customers expect us. We've outlined by Ofwat. Such improvements take time and are supported by detailed investment plans to ensure progress. As water companies with no shareholders, our focus is on the service we deliver our customers and reducing our impact on the environment. Whilst Ofwat's report published today is for 2023-2024, we have seen some positive signs so far this year. However, only 6 months of the year and there's still need for significant sustained improvement. Between 2025 and 2030, we've put forward a record investment package of £4 billion. This is essential to support the improvement in performance we seek to deliver, including £2.5 billion targeted at environmental improvement, so more than half on just making sure that they're not polluting the water. This investment will drive improvements for customers and ensure a high standard of performance across the company." So it looks like that governmental pressure is working, and there are going to be some changes, at least internally. They're saying they've changed. But I still believe that the government needs to, I think that's what they threatened earlier in the year. If they don't improve their water quality, they're going to have to go into public sector. They're no longer going to be allowed to be a private water company, and they're going to be owned by the government, which means, they're not going to make a lot of profit. Yeah, there's comments here saying, these people have been profiteering off water companies. You know, there's this perpetuated scandal has gone long too long, and they need to face the full force of law or sufficient penalties. These fines aren't good enough. These are people who are actually customers or work for action groups, right? This is not good. We need more change. And I think a lot of people, especially people who care about their water, are hitting that kind of, it's either this year or it's over, right? We're going to start actually pressuring these guys to change. In more water news, this is not so much about pollution, but about animal welfare, I guess. Coming out of Hornbrook, California, so all the way across the world from the UK. This is did anybody write this article? Nobody wrote this article. AP wrote this article. They own the article. For the first time in more than a century, salmon are swimming freely along the Klamath River and its tributaries, a major watershed near the California-Oregon border, just days after the largest dam removal project in the United States history was completed. Researchers determined that Chinook salmon began migrating October 3rd in the previous inaccessible habitat above the site in former Iron Gate Dam, one of 4 towering dams demolished as part of a national movement to let rivers return to their natural flow and to restore ecosystems to fish and other wildlife. It's been over 100 years since wild salmon last swam through the reach of the Klamath River, said Damon Goodman, a regional director for the nonprofit conservation group California Trout. "I am incredibly humbled to witness this moment and share this news," standing on the shoulders of decades of work by our tribal partners as the salmon return home. The dam removal project was completed on October 2nd, marking a major victory for local tribes that fought for decades to free hundreds of miles or kilometers of Klamath. Through protests, testimony, and lawsuits, the tribes showcased the environmental devastation caused by the 4 hydroelectric dams, especially to salmon. Scientists used sonar technology to continue to track migrating fish, including Chinook salmon, coho salmon, and steelhead trout through the fall and winter to provide important data on the river's healing process, Goodman said in a statement. While dam removal is complete, recovery will be a long process. Yeah, it was like 100 years. They have to make up for lost time.
Yep.
Conservation groups and tribes, along with the state and federal agencies, have partnered on monitoring programs to record migration and track how fish respond to long-term to the dam's removal. As of February, more than 2,000 dams have been removed in the U.S., the majority in the last 25 years, according to advocacy group American Rivers. Among them were dams on Washington State's Elwha River, which flows out of the Olympic National Park into the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and Condit Dam on the White Salmon River, a tributary of the Columbia. Klamath was once known as the 3rd largest salmon-producing river on the west coast. But after power company Pacificorp built the dam to generate electricity between 1918 and 1962, right, you heard that correctly, they only generated electricity from 1918 to 1962, which means that was only 50 years, and they haven't been doing anything else since. There's just been a dam there, doing nothing, not making energy, not what other dams could possibly do. It's just been there since the 60s, doing nothing. The structure halted the natural flow of the river and disrupted the life cycle of the region's salmon, which spent most of their life in the Pacific Ocean, but returned trips to the natal rivers to spawn. The fish population dwindled dramatically in 2002. A bacterial outbreak caused by low water and warm temperatures killed more than 35,000 fish, mostly Chinook salmon. That jump-started decades of advocacy from tribes and environmental groups, culminating in 2022 when the federal regulators approved a plan to remove the dams. Yeah, I'm sure in those trials or advocacy groups, they were like, these dams aren't being used for anything. They've been shut down. Nothing's happening. Why are they still up? Just break them down and remove them. Oh, but it costs money to remove dams. Ugh. Be a government, pay for taking care of your people. So good luck to those Chinook salmon and those trout and all those other salmon as they finally are able to spawn in their ancestral home of 50 years. I'm sure for a fish, 50 years ago is like 5,000 years. There's some old salmon who are like, oh, I remember when we used to go up the Klamath, and now they finally can go back up there, spawn, make more babies, and maybe in 500 years, salmon population will return to normal after all this human meddling. Yeah! That's my story on water and salmon. On to yours.
All right. That's a good damn story. About dams, get it? Anyway.
Yep.
Other good news today, they're good thing on the micro level. This is from Good News Network, Andy Corbly, goodnewsnetwork.org. Hero passengers lands plane after her pilot suffers cardiac arrest. Picture it, you're happily sitting aboard a plane, the pilot falls over unconscious. It's the stuff of nightmares and Hollywood movies, but for one Californian, it was too real. On what was supposed to be a flight from Las Vegas to Monterey, the twin-engine aircraft was diverted to Bakersfield before the pilot went into cardiac arrest. A brave female passenger took the helm and received instructions from Kern County Air Traffic Control Tower at the airport at Meadowfield, where the county airport director, Ron Brewster, spoke to NBC about the ordeal. We were able to get fire, ambulance, and everybody on standby, so as the aircraft came to a stop, they were getting medical attention in seconds. Audio released by the Kern County Airport Authority captures some of the instructions given to the passenger, who was instructed to keep her airspeed at around 132 miles per hour. Both Good News Network and Discovery Channel's Mythbusters have shown that passengers possess possessing no flight experience whatsoever can be talked into landing a plane successfully. The best thing to do in this situation is get in contact with the air traffic controller. The name of the woman has not yet been released, nor details about how many were on the flight, but Brewster said she was dealing with the tragedy as best she could, referring to the unfortunate ending that the pilot took at 7:30 a.m. and nonstop to heaven and was pronounced dead at the hospital. So good news for the plane landing, not good news for the pilot, who did not survive. And in other good news, it's not necessarily good news. We remember Good Times actor John Amos, who had we did not mention his death last week. We're going to catch up with it this week. Good Times actor John Amos passed away last week. This is from the journalnews.net, which is a West Virginia paper, from the Jessica A. Johnson, from the desk of Dr. J. Dr. J. This must be a book writer paper. Anyway, this is from Jessica A. Johnson from that paper. Many African Americans, members of my generation, who grew up watching Good Times, reacted to the delayed news of the recent passing of John Amos as he would of a close relative. Good Times was an iconic Norman Lear sitcom of the 1970s, and Amos portrayed the stern and battle-tested James Evans, a father who struggled to support his 3 children and wife Florida, who was played by Esther Roll. The Evans family was depicted as living in the projects of Chicago's South Side. James often worked multiple manual labor jobs to meet the rent each month, and while food wasn't always scarce for the Evans family, many times it was bland, with oatmeal being a breakfast staple. Although poor, James prided himself on being provider and protector, which made his role so endearing, especially to black kids watching the show who did not have a father or a strong male mentor in their lives. Reflecting on the impression Good Times made on me as a child, the strength and love of Evans' tight family unit was paramount. Good Times was the first primetime television sitcom that featured a black family with both a mother and father, a precursor to programs that came much later, such as The Cosby Show, My Wife and Kids, and My Wife and Kids. In fact, Good Times was originally written to portray Florida Evans as a single mother raising her children, but Esther Roll refused to accept the part unless she was given a husband. Amos provided a dominant but not uncompromising characterization of a black father, and in several episodes, his vulnerability in facing racism and ageism was shown. In the episode Too Old Blues, James was looking forward to beginning an apprenticeship program that will start him at $2.50 an hour in 1974 wages, then increasing to $4.25 an hour upon completion. He becomes so excited about this significant pay raise that he tells Florida on food and drinks for an elaborate party celebration with friends. James then receives gut-wrenching news at his interview that the computer error was made regarding his age, which at 41 disqualified him from the apprenticeship. This was one of the many episodes where James could never catch a break financially and get his family over the hump. They were barely keeping their heads above water. One of the lyrics in the show's theme song. Florida surprisingly hired his department store salesperson in the episode Florida's Big Gig, only to be laid off shortly due to the country experience of recession. Students in my TV history class at Ohio State's Lima campus watched the debutante ball, which portrays James as a proud man defending his son, Jimmy J.J. Walker. His son, J.J., was played by Jimmy Walker, anyway. In this episode, J.J. is set to take his date from a Chicago upper-class South Shore neighborhood to this high society affair, only to be belittled by her father, who feels JJ isn't good enough due to his poverty-stricken status. It was always one huge disappointment after another for the Evans family, and storylines like these kept them from progressing eventually caused Amos to be frustrated with Good Time writers. His character was later killed off, and the show was never the same. Poverty theme also wore in Good Times. Throughout the show's sixth season, but if someone had asked me when I was 8 years old if the Evans family was poor, I'm sure I would have said no. Amos' strong character portrayal of James always finding a way to survive had me drawn into the family's triumphs as a young viewer. I also noticed that faith of Florida in tough situations. Florida, of course, is the the mom's name, not the state. Good Times did not have many faith-based episodes, but Florida would occasionally reference God and pray. When I watch reruns of the show, I think about the classic hymn, "The Lord will make a way somehow," that I grew up hearing in church. One line, "The storms of life are raging and their fury falls on me," definitely describes what James was going through. And Amos made James come alive with stamina and humility. Amos left a rich television legacy, which will be remembered for his powerful role as the adult Kunta Kinte in the 1977 TV drama Roots, and for his humorous side as Cleo McDowell in the 1988 comedy film Coming to America. However, for my generation, James Evans has a seminal role we'll never forget, as he was the first father figure we identified on television. Yes, John Amos passes away. He was also on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. He played the sports guy for a couple of seasons.
Really? Okay.
I didn't mention that. But there's your story on a young lady, probably my age, who grew up watching Good Times, and I always watched that show. It was a pretty interesting show for a white kid in Wisconsin. And I had a thing for JJ's sister, Thelma, that she was cute. So there's your update on John Amos. I also have a film clip of John Amos for our mic drop moment. And back to you.
Yeah, comment down below if you've ever had a TV crush and that's why you're watching the show. I guess. Okay.
That was that, and Valerie Bertinelli on One Day at a Time.
Okay.
There was a few other ones. Anyway.
Well, in culture news, we're going to talk about music and a very long journey to Ethiopia with a piano. This is from Saeed Kamali Dengan on The Guardian. Girma Ifroshewa will never forget the exhilaration of receiving his own piano. It was a surprise gift, a mammoth task to have it shipped to Ethiopia. He then had an anxious wait at customs for 2 months and a logistical headache to get it home. So when the Pharaoh Foundation came up with the idea of raising funds in London to buy a piano for a girls' boarding school in northwest Ethiopia, the musician quickly got on board. Pupils at the Homosha School and Benishagul Gumuz State now have their teaching piano after an arduous journey reminiscent of that of Yefroshiwa's own first instrument almost 30 years before. Music has helped me to live my dreams, or I can say, live beyond my wildest dreams, he says. Yefroshiwa has had a remarkable international career, playing at New York's Carnegie Hall in June, and is now director of the Ashinafi Kebede Performance Arts Center at Addis Ababa University. Last month, in a hall packed with students and their families, he played a combination of European and Ethiopian music on the piano, which had finally arrived after leaving London on an 8-hour flight in early August. So it took until August to October to get this piano to Ethiopia. It then spent several weeks in custom halls before reaching Pharaoh's Foundation Addis Ababa office, where it sat until the road from Addis to Homosha was reopened after being closed due to attacks by anti-government forces. Piano reached the school after an 11-hour journey by van. Foundation's head of education in Ethiopia, also a musician, contacted one of the few piano tuners in Ethiopia who agreed to be flown in to restore the instrument's sound after a long journey. The Homosha School opened in 2020 with capacity for 250 pupils in a region where fewer than half of all girls are in secondary education. Musical opportunities in the region are scarce, but now a local pianist will be teaching regularly at the school. Foundation is also working with Addis Ababa University's Yared School of Music, Ethiopia's only formal music college, to design an innovative piano class for the girls. Bethel Sesegaye, Pharaoh's country director, says, "The school's purpose is to provide opportunities to girls from a remote part of Ethiopia to access a high quality and free education. Some of the girls come from households that have suffered from displacement due to civil war, and some are orphans. Once pupils had met with Ifrashewa after the concert and queued up for their first opportunity to try the piano, he reflected on his own musical journey and his first piano in 1995 when he was 26. From an early age, Ifrashewa played the kirar, a traditional harp-like Ethiopian string instrument, and studied at Yared at 16 before going to Bulgarian State Conservatory in Sofia until the fall of Ethiopia's communist regime in 1989, ending his scholarship. Oh, what a shame. A Christian group stepped in to fund the rest of his studies in Bulgaria and gifted him his first piano, a Petrov upright, on his graduation. The piano was sent to Ethiopia by plane by the Irish Christian brothers and it arrived before I did, as I had gone back to Bulgaria to pack my belongings, he said. I was very discouraged that the first instrument, which I considered my most precious item, was detained for 2 months at the customs. It was considered a luxury item, and I was asked to pay a huge amount by customs. I did not know when it would be released, and therefore the uncertainty was even more disappointing, he recalls. He hired a van and took the piano to his parents' home in Addis Abba's Kotobe area. It was a big celebration for the entire neighborhood, as everybody knew that what a distressing experience I had. The piano was damaged as it had been left outside, but I was still happy to have it. I finally found a piano tuner who was visiting from Nairobi, and he fixed the instrument for me. It was 5 years before he got a grand piano as a professional. That was in 2020, he said. The piano was a less eventful journey, with Ifrashewa fame bringing many sponsors who helped deliver it, but he still had the first instrument that meant him so much to him. But he still has the first piano he ever got delivered that meant so much. That sentence was really weird. But that's the end of the article too, it just ends there. So congratulations on those girls in Ethiopia who now have a piano and a teacher to teach them how to play it, and maybe some of them will see some of them in an orchestra in the coming future. Hooray for pianos and music.
Tickling the ivories.
Now for this day in history.
This day in history, this is day in history, all the way back to 1809. We're not even going that far back. October 18th, 1809, Clemens von Metternich was named Foreign Minister of Austria. He received the country's standing in European affairs, and his organization, the Congress of Vienna, maintained a balance of power in Europe. Don't know what any of that really amounts to. 1856 in Canton, or Guangzhou, which is what it's called in China, I guess. Chinese officials boarded a British registered ship, the Arrow, arrested several Chinese crew members who were later released, and allegedly lowered the British flag. The event contributed to the start of the Second Opium War, in which Britain and France battled China. In 1871, on this day, the city of Peshtigo, Wisconsin was burned to the ground in hours, killing 1,152 people. The famous Peshtigo fire.
What the hell caused it?
Lakes were literally boiling. Yeah, people were jumping in the lakes and getting boiled to death because it was burning
really?
So hot.
Wow. What
18. Yeah. We grew up. It happened the same day as the Chicago fire.
Wow, that's weird.
1895 on this day. 1895, Argentine politician Juan Perón was born. Of course, you know Juan Perón from his wife Evita Perón, who served as president of Argentina from 1946 to 52, 52 to 55, and 73 to 74, and founded and led the Peronist movement. So happy birthday to Juan Perón. 1818, Corporal Alvin York single-handedly captured 132 Germans and killed another 25 during the Meuse-Argonne offensive in World War I. Way to go, Sergeant Corporals Alvin York. Kicking ass and taking names. Literally, because he was taking 132 prisoners. 1950, 1967, an accident at the Windscale nuclear facility in northwestern England caused a fire that burned for 16 hours and left 10 tons of radioactive fuel melted in the reactor core. Oh, I've never heard of that one. But hey, nuclear meltdown in 1957. Didn't even hear about it until just now. 1967, prominent communist figure in the Cuban Revolution and a South American guerrilla leader, Che Guevara, was captured and later shot to death by the Bolivian army. Personal note, I met a guy when I was in Colombia who was in the Bolivian army, who was a special forces guy, who was in the firing squad that shot Che Guevara. And I said, bullshit. And he said, no, here's a picture. And he pulls out a black and white picture of him with a dead Che Guevara and some other soldiers. So I met a guy who was in that firing squad. 1967, also on this day, 1967, the same exact day, British politician Klamath River, who, while serving as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in 45 to 51, presided over the establishment of a welfare state in his country and granting of the independence of India. Okay? Anyway, Klamath River died this day in 1967 at the age of 84. 1970, Alexander Isavievich Solzhenitsyn was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. He was a Soviet dissident and he was locked in a gulag for a good portion of his life. 1982, the Polish legislature dissolved the trade union Solidarity, which subsequently became the underground organization and played a key role in ending communist rule in Poland. Its various leaders, notably Lech Walesa, later holding important government posts. So Solidarity, which later helped destroy the Soviet Union, was dissolved as a trade union on this day, 1982, which is a wrong thing to do by the communist leaders of Poland. 2001, in Italy's worst civilian air disaster in nearly 30 years, a Cessna took a wrong turn on the taxiway at Linate Airport in Milan and crashed into an SAS airliner about to take off, which exploded, killing 118 people, including 4 airport workers. Some dumbass in an airplane made a wrong turn. 2004, American domestic life innovator Martha Stewart, 20 years ago, Martha Stewart, reported to federal prison in West Virginia to begin her 5-month sentence for insider trading. And insider trading, probably the only person ever to be locked up for insider trading in the history of the planet. Martha Stewart. 2005, killing at least 79,000 people, an earthquake struck the Pakistani administered portion of the Kashmir region in the northwest frontier province of Pakistan. So 79,000 people died today in an earthquake in 2005. So wow, 79,000. That's not good. And our feature event, I talked about earlier with the Peshtigo fire. On this day in 1871, the same day, the Great Chicago Fire began in the barn of Patrick and Catherine O'Leary, which is an urban legend which has never been proven. By the time the blaze died out 2 days later, a large swath of the city had been devastated and 300 people killed in Chicago. Now, I've seen the theory that the Chicago Fire and the Peshtigo Fire, because they were actually very close to each other and it was a very, very dry summer, that the Peshtigo Fire and Chicago Fire were started by a meteorite. And a meteorite broke up and landed in several places and started a lot of fires, but 2 of them were centered where there was population. Peshtigo was near Green Bay. It was near a lot of paper mills and lumber mills, because Wisconsin was basically just all paper mills and lumber mills in 1871. And, of course, a lot of dry wood around paper mills and lumber mills. So it even made it worse. Our feature biography, Jesse Jackson, American minister and activist, birthday today. He's born October 8th, 1941 in Greenville, South Carolina. He's turning 83 today, so happy 83rd birthday to Jesse Jackson. Keep hope alive. Also birthdays today, 1920, American author Frank Herbert wrote the Dune series, born in 1920. Happy birthday. R.L. Stine, American author, born in 1943. Reed Hastings, born in 1960, American entrepreneur. And Matt Damon, our cousin Matt Damon, American actor, screenwriter, and producer. born in 1970, our cousin Matt. So happy birthday to Matt Damon. You are now 54. National Day calendar. It's National Pierogi Day. Pierogi is like a little pastry type thing. It's kind of shaped like a taco. It's got meat and stuff in it, really tasty. National Hero Day. So if you're a hero, it's your day. So go on with your bad self, Batman, or Superman.
Go on with your bad self.
And Spider-Man, and Wonder Woman, and The Flash, and everybody else. I'm sorry?
Just go on with your bad self. I love that.
Green Hornet. Yeah. American Touch Tag Day. I've only called it tag, but I guess there's other kind of tag. When we were kids, we played water tag, which you played with water guns. You played that, and you also played ball tag, which you take a rubber ball and you tag people with it. And there's touch tag, where you just touch people with your hand. So it's Touch Tag Day. Tag you're it, we used to call it. Tag you're it. And it's National Fluffernutter Day, which I brought up earlier, which peanut butter and marshmallows. I'm sorry. Please stop. That's not good. That's not a good combination. Peanut butter is meant to be with jelly. I don't get the Fluffernutter thing. So those are your days for today. I don't get it. I don't get the Fluffernutter. It just seems awful. Peanut butter with marshmallow goop.
Just don't. That's a choking hazard is what it is.
Yeah, it's just going to stick to your teeth for like a day or two. My God. Who thought of this? Somebody really needs a lot of sugar in their diet, apparently. Anyway, those are your days for today, October 8th, 2024, on Before Pierogies. Before Pierogies. I'm not doing the Fluffernutter. Sorry, man.
Yeah, hell yeah. All right, this has been Allison here, celebrating cotton, I guess. And we will see you tomorrow from Wacky and Weird Wednesday.
Might as well eat cotton if you're eating the Fluffernutter.
Yeah, we're going to celebrate some Wacky and Weird Wednesday, where we're going to look at for all the weird and wacky news that's been going on last week or on Wednesday this week. And I hope you guys have a good Tuesday, because you're allowed to. Today is the day you're allowed to have a good day. And so you better have one, or I'm going to beat you up and make you have a good day.
That's right. Let's not threaten violence. Let's not do that.
No, it's supposed to be contradictory as comedy. Anyways, we'll see you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on those notifications so you know when we go live for Wacky and Weird Wednesday. And of course, like this video and tell us down below what you would do for a piano. Let's go ahead and watch our mic drop moment.
All right, John Amos.
The differences we had on that show, and we had a number of differences, as evidenced by my early departure from the show, was I felt that with two other younger children, one of whom who aspired to become a Supreme Court justice, that would be Ralph Carter or Michael, and the other, Bernadette Stannis, I think, she aspired to become a surgeon. And the differences I had with the producers of the show was that I felt too much emphasis was being put on JJ and his chicken hat and saying dynamite every third page, when just as much emphasis and mileage could have been gotten out of my other two children and the concomitant jokes and humor that could have come out of that. But I wasn't the most diplomatic guy, like I said, in those days, and they got tired of having their lives threatened over jokes. So they said, to tell you what, why don't we kill him off and we'll all get on with our lives.
Oh my God.
So that taught me a lesson.
Yeah,
I wasn't as
kidding.
important as I thought I was to the show or to Norman Lear's plans. And he was not about to have a disruptive factor. That was me, a disruptive factor. I got the call. We were on hiatus when I found that I was no longer to be a part of the show. And Norman's secretary at that time, a very nice young lady by the name of J.D. Joe, called and said, John, Norman would like to speak to you. And I thought that was kind of unusual as we were on hiatus. And so Norman got on the phone. He said, Big John. I said, yes, Norman. He said, I've got some good news and some bad news. What do you want first? I said, hey, it's your dime. You made the call. He said, well, the good news is we've been picked up for another season.
That's not good news for him.
Conclusion, because we'd never been out of it. Once we broke into the top 10, we never were
Just
on
give me
it.
the
We
bad
stayed in
news.
the
Forget
top
the good
5
news.
for
I don't
quite a
want
Yeah,
while.
I'm just like, that's not good
Corrected.
news for him, though,
One way or
because
the
he's
other,
been
I couldn't
fired.
understand
So
why
they
We're
should have,
getting
he
the
should
good
have
news.
actually
He told me
found some
that
good
we were
news for
you.
him.
And then he said, "You want the bad news?" I said, "Sure. How bad can it be?" He said, "You won't be with us." And I said, "Nothing." I didn't say a word. I let that register for a minute. He said, "You still there?" I said, "Yeah, I'm here, Norman. Well, don't you want to say something?" He said, "What can I say? It's your show. Have
Yeah.
a good life." Click. And that was it. I was going to be, recalcitrant to the end. You won't get me to roll over and cry for the job. No,
I'll get
forget
something
me,
on the
man.
job.
But I didn't curse or anything. I just
Right, yeah.
hung up the phone. And he didn't call me back to see if I had anything else to say. I never heard from him again for months and months and months.
There you go.
Yeah.
Of course, the big thing with Good Times.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.